we go through it, as long as we don't end up getting sidetracked too far along the way, but I'll make sure and bring it back if we start wandering a little bit too much. So is that Dave, Jennifer, who's?
Just a comment before we get started. Jen is going to do the heavy lifting on the presentation this evening, but tonight we're going to spend our time in the PowerPoint presentation. We won't be walking through the notebook until the very end. There'll be we'll spend some time really orienting you to what's in the notebook so that you'll be familiar with it as you look through it. We have another work session on the budget on the 8th, and we anticipate you might have some questions on those details, but we intend to go through the PowerPoint presentation tonight with you. There's quite a lot of information here, and with that I'll turn it over to Jen.
Okay, we have our agenda. We're going to start with the third quarter financial update. RJ's going to go through that, and then I think everybody's pretty much explained the gist of how we're going to go through the PowerPoint presentation and let you go through the details of the budget. I apologize if the presentation's black and white. We're having copier issues. Perhaps we need to take over the copier for public work.
Uh-oh.
We broke one, and toner cartridges and another one, so hopefully there are enough to go around, and if not, we'll be sure to get folks a copy that need one. So with that, I'll turn it over to RJ for the third quarter update.
So third quarter financial update. On slide 4, this shows us where we're at the end of September 2010 for the third quarter. I do want to point and keep in mind that total revenues do include the budgeted revenue transfers from fire and from building contingency. That's what that $2 million number is down there. The other highlights on there is that third quarter revenues are at about 74.1% of the full year's budgeted amount. And if we exclude the transfers, revenues are up about 0.9% compared to third quarter of 2009. Property sales and tax and utilities have been up, while licensing and permits and fees are down from what 2009's actuals are. For our expenditure outlook, again, the third quarter 2010 actual does include the revenue transfer out from fire. So if you look at fire's number, you see a $3.1 million. That includes $1.4 million transfer that went to general fund. It's an accounting ledger that we need to create in there, but it does inflate their expenditures higher than what it really actually is in there. If you look at our third quarter percentage of today, we're at 71.6%. And saying that third quarter expenditures are at 71.6% of the revised budget. Excluding these transfers from third quarter 2010, expenditures are down 2.5% compared to that of third quarter 2009. Something to also keep in mind, I'm just going to flip back to the revenue, is that our property tax revenue so far collected through the third quarter was 57.4%. While that number does seem to be lower than where it should be, we get most of our second half of the year this month. So probably by the first week of November, we'll have a better update of what our property tax collection is for the entire year. Are there any questions on the third quarter? Not.
Brings it back to me. You'll notice that the presentation is in the same format that Paul's been presenting to us throughout the year, so there shouldn't be a whole lot of surprises in here on what you're going to see from the assumptions and the key investments. So again, some of the assumptions we made throughout the budget process was that there would be no new taxes for the general street and fire fund. There is kind of a caveat to that with because we're capped out on our rate this year. But in order to preserve our future levy capacities, we are going to be bringing forward a resolution banking a 1% increase, and I'll explain that momentarily. But we just wanted to be upfront and say, we're saying no new taxes, and this is to preserve for the future. And again, I'll go through that in a minute. We kept our revenues pretty conservative. We didn't want to overestimate and have it come back to bite us later. So we get additional revenues, that's great. but we, again, wanted to keep it realistic and keep it conservative and budget to those conservative levels to make sure that we're living within a reasonable amount. We are presenting a minimal use of cash reserves. We've got the number down to $185,000 in the general street and fire fund. We started at the beginning of the retreat, I believe, that number was about $965,000 was the projected deficit for 2011. And we've gotten that down through a lot of hard work and to the credit of all the department heads. So the resolution that we're going to bring forward talks about, again, banking. It's kind of different than the banking that you did last year. So this is banking the actual levy rate, so that when our levy lid lift comes up that was approved in 2006, comes up again, we don't have to go back to where that levy was at, because it adds in, if you look at the next slide, it'll revert back to the 06 levy plus any increases that have been approved by council since 06 and new construction. So if we don't set this resolution banking at 1%, you don't have the option of including it in the future. This banking only gives you the option. It does not constrain or hold the future council to that 1% increase. It just gives them the option of being able to have that rate preserved so that you can move forward from that point. Again, you don't have to, but it's just giving you that cushion and to work for, not knowing what the future holds. So that will be, I guess this slide kind of explains it a little bit more. So the cost of that would be banking roughly $35,000 for the future, would be that 1% that you'll see. Again, it doesn't bind you, it just gives you the option. So we're looking for the future and making sure that we give the council all the tools that they need in the future. The next slide we just put in there because they're kind of hot topics on the ballot right now with it being election time. The initiatives I'm sure everyone's heard about are the liquor tax, and then one that I hadn't really heard about was 1107, and that's repealing sales tax on candy and some of the bottled water initiatives. So we really don't expect these to have an impact on the 2011 budget because it'll be more toward the end of the year, end of 2011, beginning of 2012, before this will really have an impact should they pass. And we don't know what the state legislature will do if they pass, where they'll go from there. So the liquor tax is roughly $160,000 in revenue, and we don't really have any way to itemize out the sales tax on candy or bottled water. So that would just kind of play itself out through the sales tax that we receive. But we just wanted to bring it to your attention that could have a potential future impact. For the expense side of the general street and fire funds, we again did some constraining, belt tightening. We are budgeting lower than the 2010 amended budget that we just amended, bringing those expenses down. So that's where we started, was from that 97% target of 2010, and went from there. We had department heads zero-base their professional service and training and travel budgets. That doesn't mean that everybody came in at zero. What that means is that we started at zero and then added back maintaining certifications, required training for police and fire, required training for other departments as well. So we all went through a lot of thought process and whatnot of what to include in this budget. And then if you didn't see that before we flashed, that brought travel and training overall funds down 25% from the budgeted